am Jenny.
I'm Mike.
And this is And the Nominees Were. It is a podcast where we're watching every movie ever nominated for Best Picture at the Academy Awards.
Yes. It is true.
I like the way I said, it is a podcast.
Yes.
As if you were not aware.
Today we are talking about Deliverance.
Yep. You know, it's funny, that was about as much enthusiasm as I could muster before we watched it. It would be like, yep, this week. Oh, and this was the thing too. I kept telling people, that we were going to be watching this movie, and more than once their reaction was, oh. And I was like, yes, same.
Yeah.
But I didn't hate it.
No, I think it has mutated into a much different movie in people's head, in like the collective unconscious.
Right.
Because of the one thing anybody knows about it.
Exactly. Yeah, I guess, does this episode need trigger warnings? Is this like the crying game everybody knows?
I guess. I don't know. Yeah, that is, as far as I know, that's the only thing anybody knows about Deliverance.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Although it's sort of stopped being as much of a cultural touchstone as it was at one point.
That's true.
I think if for some weird reason, like up to like the early 90s, you could just make squeal like a pig jokes and everyone would know what you're talking about.
I feel like it was that one of those jokes was in something very popular in the 90s, and that is where kids learned it.
Maybe.
But I don't remember what it was.
I don't know. I remember
something as big as, if not Wayne's World. You know, like something like that.
Yeah. I remember a Kids in the Hall sketch where like these two awful hillbillies were just really obsessed with that one scene in Deliverance, and it involved Mark McKinney saying "squeal like a pig" a lot.
Okay.
But I don't remember anything else about the sketch.
I feel like it's possible that I also saw that because I didn't watch the Kids in the Hall the way that you did, and having seen all the episodes
obsessively and endlessly. I don't think I've seen every episode of the Kids in the Hall.
Okay.
'Cause there's a couple they wouldn't run on Comedy Central because there was too much bad stuff in them.
I see. But I did used to watch it on Comedy Central sometimes, and it's possible that that's also where I learned this from, now that you mention it.
I mean, it's been a thing. I think it's really weird that there's like Toy Story 4 banner ads on the Deliverance page
yeah, I saw
on IMDb. That. They're just on every single movie you click on right now.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what.
Yeah. I feel like Disney should be able to like pick and choose what movies they advertise on. Yeah. Like, please don't have Woody standing next to Linda Lovelace and do through.
Right. Are you looking to see?
I was going to go to the connections page. Yeah. This is a thing for like the end of the podcast, but now I'm really curious.
Right. Since we brought it up, I guess, do you want me to talk in the meantime?
Sure.
To fill air while you look this up. So if you don't know anything about Deliverance, other than that there is a sexual assault in it, which, this is terrible, but I was literally about to say, but at least it's not against a woman for once. And actually, you know what? I would argue, not to jump right into, my hot takes, but I would argue that that's the reason why this is still in the collective unconscious, is because a man gets raped in this movie.
Yeah, and there's been dozens of movies where women get raped and like it's a major plot point.
I like how you said dozens, as if there aren't hundreds. But yeah.
Well, it's even worse somehow, where I was going to be like, well, there's dozens where it's like a major thing, and there's probably just hundreds where it's just offhandedly referenced.
It just happens, yeah. Yep. But but I do think that is the reason why it's the thing that people know. That's what made it culturally memetic, was that it's stuck in men's brains in particular.
Yeah, and there were probably have been movies that dealt with like the aftermath of rape from like a woman's perspective, but like those are almost like walled off from all movies. You know, those are movies for women. You know.
Well, except for the fact that a good amount of those are, exploitation movies and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah, there's like even more of those.
The whole genre, of just, rape revenge and stuff. Yeah,
this was a big movie by a big studio. Actually, it wasn't really a big movie.
Okay.
So this movie is based on a novel by James Dickey, written, I don't know, in the 60s sometime. I have no idea. But he was mostly a poet. I'm not even sure he's ever written another novel after this.
Okay.
And this movie was directed by John Borman, who had made, I think, like 4 previous movies at this point. His first film back in the 60s was Having a Wild Weekend, which was basically A Hard Day's Night, but with the Dave Clark 5.
I did not know this existed.
Yeah. And he made a couple other things. His biggest thing at this point was Point Blank, starring Lee Marvin. Okay. But that was like a little tiny film. And he'd never had like a huge hit. And this became the big hit. But like this was a nothing little movie. It was financed by Warner Brothers. But, at first it was going to be sort of a prestige movie, and they were going to get like 2 big name stars to be in it, and then Warner Brothers was like, no, this costs too much money, you have to do it for less and less money, and they basically made it for absolutely nothing. By all accounts, it seems like it was almost an independent film, but it was financed by Warner Brothers. And this movie now stars 2 very famous people, but at the time they weren't really. Jon Voight had been in Midnight Cowboy, but his career was sort of like on the rocks at this point. And Burt Reynolds had starred in 3 TV shows that had all been canceled after 1 season.
Okay.
So nobody wanted him in movies either. Ned Beatty and Ronnie Cox, it was their first movie.
Okay. I don't know why, but just in my head, I had trouble with the idea of Ned Beatty having a first movie. You know what I mean?
Because it's just he's been acting for forever.
That's what it feels like, yeah. I guess that's the thing with,
everybody's got to have a first movie.
I know, but I think that's the thing from just being our age and just watching these movies from the 70s, that they were new at the time.
And Ned Beatty was in so many movies in the 70s. Like, I was looking him up on Letterboxd after this movie, and, it's sort of by popularity, and, like, I've seen the first, like, 12 most popular Ned Beatty movies, and I'm not even, like, a huge... It's not like I go and watch these movies because Ned Beatty's in them. He's just in all these great movies. Or pretty good, famous movies.
Did you find the answer to this question?
Well, it's been mentioned in plenty of things throughout the 70s and 80s. It is directly referenced in Dazed and Confused when Ben Affleck whacks the guy with the paddle.
Okay.
It seems like it's just been consistently referenced over decades, and it has mutated into a point of humor. Because it's like, because it's just so uncomfortable. Right. Mm-hmm. We'll talk about that scene later, I guess. We were getting into the history of the movie, I guess, a little bit. This was a super low budget movie starring pretty much nobodies, and directed by a guy who'd made a couple of weird movies that some people like a lot. Okay. And then it just sort of exploded. And I don't really know why, except that, it's good.
It is pretty good, yeah. I actively wanted to dislike it. Yeah. Even with, the read on it is like, oh, this movie is about masculinity, and, so I went into this movie, though, just kind of actively not wanting to like it because, I heard this movie was about masculinity and toxic masculinity specifically, and I was just like, yeah, cool. I mean, I'm ready for the hot take that men are garbage, and And I don't know, but that's not, it is about that, but like not in the simplistic way I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, it's about I don't know. It's got a lot of depth to it. A lot of different weird things going on, like about our relationship to nature and like being an outsider and yeah, like these. There's these. Well, I don't know. We didn't talk about what the plot of the movie is.
Okay, so the plot of the movie is these 4 guys from the city decide that they're going to raft down this river before it is dammed off and becomes a lake.
Yeah. And they're in canoes, but yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I said raft, I'm sorry.
That's fine.
But yeah, they're in canoes. They canoe down the river.
They're canoodling.
Hey.
Yes.
And yeah, they and it's a bad idea all around, basically. Not only because like when people talk about this movie, it makes it sound like, you know, they're just getting hunted down by crazy hillbillies.
Yeah, and that's
like it's
not...
like the hills have eyes, and it's not that.
Yeah, I think it's left a little ambiguous. Basically, like about halfway through, they're attacked by just these 2 men who you have never seen before, and one of the party, Ned Beatty's character is raped, and then they manage to kill one of these guys. Then another one gets away, and then they basically shit somehow gets even worse from there.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. They spend a long time burying this guy, and then going down the river more, but then the river gets worse.
Yep.
And then they're being
the one friend who didn't want to. He wanted to go to the police after they killed this one guy, and he is outvoted and has to help bury this guy, and he basically goes into shock and falls out of the canoe. And,
I think it's possible that he was shot.
That's the thing. This is what I think, because that's what, you know, Burt Reynolds' character says. It says that he was shot, and but presumably by the guy that got away.
Yeah.
And so they're on the lookout for this guy, and then, well, I'll get into that. But basically, he says that this character Andrew, right? Drew is his name. Yeah. Was shot, but you don't hear a shot or anything, and he just kind of is not really moving or anything before he falls out of the boat.
Yeah.
He's just unresponsive. He doesn't put on his life jacket. He doesn't paddle, and then he just pitches forward out of the boat into the rapids. And and so I don't know if it's supposed to be clear one way or the other, but I was under the impression that he was just in shock from participating in a murder cover-up. Yeah. And couldn't handle it and fell out of the boat.
Yeah, it's certainly possible, but then also after they go down this particularly bad rapid, one of their canoes breaks, and Burt Reynolds' leg is broken.
Yep.
And then
like really badly broken. Like you see like goo coming out.
Yeah. Which apparently was just like a lamb leg that they bought at a butcher shop, and he just stuck it in Burt Reynolds' pants. They did no other like makeup. They just literally like cut a hole in the pants and shoved it in, and it works.
Yeah, it looks gross.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it's Jon Voight's job to like climb up this sheer rock face to try and find the guy who was shooting at them allegedly. And he is there. He comes back the next morning.
That's the thing, okay? I think that the movie makes it unclear whether that guy is the guy that was there.
That's true.
Yeah, because like even to the point where like Jon Voight, he has a bow and arrows, and he's like supposed to be a hunter, but there's a scene early on where there's a deer there and he can't shoot the deer. And Burt Reynolds' character Lewis is like, yeah, some guys like never can take the shot or whatever. And finally, Jon Voight only shoots this guy on top of the cliff because this guy is pointing his gun at him and is going to shoot him. So he finally shoots. It looks like he misses. He stabs himself in the side with his own arrows like a goddamn idiot. And but he does wind up killing this guy. And then after he does it, he goes over to look at him and immediately panics because he thinks it's not the same guy. And he has to reassure himself because the guy
he did not have very many teeth.
Right. And so he reassures himself by putting his fingers in this guy's mouth and popping out his fake teeth in the front.
Yeah.
And so he's oh, okay, it's the same guy. But is that real proof? I'm not
really, but it is
honestly.
the same guy.
Okay. Is it
It's the same
literally
actor.
the same guy? Because I couldn't tell.
It's the same actor. I don't know why he has a bridge and wasn't wearing it the day of his of his adventures the other day.
Right. But yeah, so that I guess that makes the movie less interesting to me. I'm not even kidding. I thought it was more interesting when they wound up just killing a random stranger because they thought this guy shot their friend who was almost definitely not shot. I mean, in the version of the movie that plays in my head, all of those things happen. And
they're
basically just descending into madness.
Yeah. Those things can still happen.
Okay. But that version of the movie is more interesting to me. And then they have to cover up this second murder of this guy who it turns out is, actually has family and stuff in the sheriff's department who are looking for him. And I don't know. And it's a whole thing. So, yeah. What were you going to say?
Well, it's just finish up. They all this shit happens, and then they get back to the town that they were trying to get to originally.
Yep.
And they've got to deal with the police because their friend died.
Yep.
Police don't seem to know about at least one of those. I don't know.
That's true. They only seem to be looking for the other guy. Yeah, the second guy.
Yeah.
So that was the other thing that made me think maybe it wasn't the same guy. Was because if they killed both of these guys, it would be weird if the cops were only looking for one of them,
I mean, I guess.
I don't know. That was what I thought.
Yeah,
so I didn't think about it that way. I don't know. I like the plot better. The more ambiguity, isn't it? The more it seems
ambiguous.
Yeah. But the more that it seems like these guys from the city just went full feral as soon as bad things started happening to them.
I mean, it's also very unclear. Just no one talks about it, whether this is because they go into they find this small town at first, and they drive through this gas station, and they're immediately sort of there's a hostile air between them and the locals,
right?
Because they are sort of condescending jerks.
Yes.
to all of these inbred wackos. And so it's really unclear whether that has anything to do with the fact that they run into these two crazy people an hour into the movie.
Right. I couldn't tell if they all knew each other, if they kind of, if these guys heard that these guys were, if the two hillbillies, heard that these idiots from the city were canoeing down the river, and they were like, I know, we'll really mess them up, or because at the beginning of the movie, when there's the people from the town that they get to drive their cars for them, when they all get into the car together, the hillbilly guys, there's a pointed shot of one of them putting his rifle in the back of the car. And I kind of thought to myself, I'm like, oh, see, these guys know what kind of crazy people live in the woods out here. They want to be prepared. But it's...
or they just are looking to maybe shoot themselves some city boys.
It's possible, too. Yeah, we don't know. We don't know their motivations.
Yeah. It's just, it's very ominous out there. And in fact, the first half hour of the movie, it seems like Burt Reynolds' character's job is to just say the most ominous shit, every 5 minutes. Every single line he says is well, that's the movie. That's the whole...
that was making me crazy at the beginning. Especially when I was not on board, and then and then Burt Reynolds would say things like, sometimes you gotta lose everything before you find yourself. I was like, all right, is that just on the poster? Because if not, it should be.
Yeah.
Because that's it. That's the movie. But yeah. I was on the quotes page. He's got that line. He also says at one point, "You don't beat it. You don't beat this river. You don't beat this river." Yep. Yeah. Yeah, he seems like a real whack job. The Burt Reynolds character. He's always it's his idea to go on this trip in the first place. And it's just because he wants to travel down this river while it still exists. And then later on they're talking about basically he's like a survivalist. He wants to be prepared for the downfall of civilization. And
which he was just on the other side of that. That's just everybody nowadays.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of doomsday preppers.
That's true.
All around.
Yep.
He was on the forefront of that.
Yes. Yep. And then, it certainly seems to work out at the beginning. He seems very confident at shooting rapists.
Yes.
But, then he just breaks his leg and then he's useless. So, he's just useless the rest of the movie.
Yeah. Not even he can beat the river.
Exactly. You don't beat that river. So, I don't know. And then Jon Voight is a soft boy.
Yeah.
He plays a soft boy. I actually, because I don't like Jon Voight. Who likes Jon Voight?
Nobody does. I don't think even Angelina Jolie likes Jon Voight.
Right. But but he's good in this movie, back when he was young.
Yeah, he was a very good actor.
Yeah, but I was struck by, I don't think I'd ever seen a movie that he made when he was young. Mm-hmm. And so I was struck by how much he looked like Angelina Jolie. They're just big, round, blue-eyed faces and stuff. I don't know. And yeah. So, I don't know. He seems to be... He's the character that's just going along with shit.
Yeah.
Until he has to make the decisions because he was following Burt Reynolds around and now Burt Reynolds is incapacitated.
Yeah, this movie doesn't really get into any of these characters' backstories. You basically learn what they do for a living. That's about it. But I think that's really smart.
And a little bit about what their outside life is like, but not a lot.
Yeah, so you can draw your own connections, but it certainly feels like maybe he and Burt Reynolds seem like they were, I don't know, maybe childhood friends or something like that.
Yeah.
They're very close.
That's true.
But they
seem like maybe college buddies, except that I have trouble believing that Burt Reynolds' character went to college. But they've got that vibe.
Yeah,
so but maybe high school friends or something.
Yeah, but they clearly haven't. They don't do the same things in their spare time anymore.
Yeah. And I can't remember Jon Voight's character's name.
There's Lewis, which is Burt Reynolds.
Yep.
I think Ed is Jon Voight.
Okay.
There's Bobby, which
is Ned Beatty, and then Drew is Ronnie Cox. Okay. But yeah, so at one point though, the first when they're I guess I don't remember when it is, but Burt Reynolds is asking Jon Voight why he comes on these, why you always want to come on these trips with me. You got a wife and a baby, but you always want to hang out with me in the woods. And it's just funny because it seems like he's judging him, even though that's his friend. Yeah. He's like, why do you want to spend time with me? I don't know. And it's just, but that's the most that you find out really, other than that, the one other guy has a wife or kids or whatever. That's the most you find out about anybody's outside life is that Jon Voight is a real suburban dude. The implication is, and he just but he's just nope, I'm gonna go on this adventure in the woods, bye. With my weird crazy friend.
Yeah
I don't know. So, and I think that is part of the discussion of masculinity that the movie is having or thinks it's having.
Yeah, it's they definitely touch upon it's almost like macho-ness, machismo,
right?
Versus like actual like masculinity.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's true, but like, I don't think the movie comes down in favor of one or the other when it like really should. Like, because I don't know, it's sort of. It seems to be kind of interrogating this, but then at the end it's just like, well, it doesn't matter what you do because nature can beat you no matter what.
Yeah.
You know, that seems to be the real message of Deliverance. It's like, it doesn't matter what you do. The river, you can't beat the river.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and it's like, at the beginning of the movie, these like city boys are being like gross to these hillbillies. And then, you know, so when the hillbillies do like some heinous shit in the middle of the movie, it's like, I don't know, they're not like the pure villains of the movie. I mean, those two guys are the villains of the movie, but it's weird. But
it seems sort of like they're getting punished for their hubris a little bit.
Yeah, it's like, yeah.
Well, yeah, I think that's the thing. I think it feels like them getting attacked by the hillbillies is them being punished for condescending to the hillbillies, and then getting attacked by the river is like them being punished for condescending to nature.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know.
It's also, I think this might be in some ways like an allegory about like the Vietnam War.
Okay. That, you know, I never thought about that, but that probably makes sense.
Yeah, I feel like there's some subtext there where, you know, we just like went into the country like thinking we know what to do, we know how to do everything here, and then Vietnam being like, no, you don't know anything about us. We don't want your help.
Yep. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and I forget things like, you know, the fact that they were making movies about Vietnam.
You forgot that the Vietnam War happened?
I didn't forget it happened, but I kind of forgot that they might be talking about it in movies that were not about it.
I mean, it's certainly not explicit.
Right.
But I feel like it's interesting that this came out.
I also would think it would be later in my head, because I have no concept of time.
Yeah, well, I mean, the war had been going on since the early 60s, and
right.
It only just ended, like, when this movie came out,
okay.
I think. Or it might not even have ended. I don't know. It was around the time that it was ending, because I don't know exactly when it happened. All I remember is that in 1972, George McGovern's entire campaign was, like, end the Vietnam War, it's stupid.
Okay.
And then 2 weeks before the election, Richard Nixon said, hey, the Vietnam War is over.
Right.
And so George McGovern had no campaign.
Yep.
And Richard Nixon won in like the greatest landslide in American history until
because everybody
Reagan.
was just glad that he had done the thing.
Mm-hmm. Clearly the man knows what he's doing. He just ended the Vietnam War.
Yeah, not just anybody could have done that.
Yeah.
Like literally anybody could have done that. You know,
Nixon could have done that at any point in the last 4 years.
How you could have? I mean, we watched The Post. We know that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, but that makes sense.
Yeah.
Good read. So I want to talk about the cliff though.
Okay.
Because John Boyd's got to climb up this whole cliff, and it has the weirdest looking day for night I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah. So what they did is they had to shoot it for day, and there was basically no good way that they could. Like usually what you do is if you're shooting on a bright day or you're shooting day at all, you basically put the like f-stops down on the camera so like the least amount of light possible can go in. But it was just like, apparently it was just really hard to do that. Like they just, even then it looked like daytime. As it very often does. Like a lot of times I've seen like old westerns that shoot day for night. Like there's no way that's nighttime because the sun is just shining down every angle. There's no and here it was like always cloudy. It seemed like, and so the light was all diffuse. So apparently what they did is basically the sky behind them was like white enough because it was cloudy all the time that it basically took the negative image of it. Like they printed it negative and then took that sky and printed that on top of the regular sky.
So that's why the night sky is like green.
Yeah, it's like this weird like bluish thing, and like it like bleeds over Jon Voight's face and stuff. Yep. And yeah, it's weird.
Like I a little bit liked it because it sort of felt like going crazy climbing climbing the cliff, because he has to, he climbs it for so long. Yeah. And it looks like it took an entire day. And everything is green and it's all over his face and it's all blown out, and I'm like, on his face, I mean. I'm like it felt like going crazy.
They truly were the cliffs of insanity.
Yes.
It's a really weird effect. I don't know if it works. I don't know if it's more or less distracting than it would be if they just hadn't done anything and you were like, this is clearly daytime.
Right. Yeah, that's possible.
Let's talk about the one scene.
Okay.
Where the infamous rape scene, where Jon Voight and Ned Beatty are just sort of accosted in the woods. They're taken by surprise. And one of them's got a gun. They tie Jon Voight to a tree by like his neck, so he really just like can't move at all.
Yep.
He's just got to watch this happen.
Yep.
And then for like a really long time, it's just like one long take of all of these guys, and like they keep moving. I don't know. I remember on the commentary, John Borman talking about like how the rest of the movie had been sort of like edited at like a normal pace, and he really wanted this one moment to just like everything stops, and you're just like getting very uncomfortable.
Right.
Like, why are they cutting? Why isn't there a close up now? And so you feel the weird tension, and then it happens, and it's still a very disturbing scene, even to like knowing it's coming, like hearing it referenced.
It's not particularly graphic.
No, it's really not.
Yeah.
The most you see is like you see Ned Beatty's butt a couple times.
Lot. Yeah,
and it's there's really no. You just see like the pain on his face.
Yeah.
At times. Yeah, that's like maybe the worst part is like, well, there's a big long part where Ned Beatty's like in his underwear and he's trying to get away, and he's just like climbing on this like hill and getting all like dirty. And brown, and then finally the guy catches him and then starts going at it, and then it cuts to like just extreme close-ups of both of their faces while it's going on, and it's just
and there's also
it's a lot.
And there's also a real close-up of Jon Voight too, just having to look. And like I guess he could have not, but I don't know if maybe he felt like he couldn't not look. I don't know, because
it certainly seemed like the way they tied him up, they wanted him to see it.
Right.
And so maybe if he closed his eyes, the guy with the gun might have...
That's true. That's a good point. But, yeah. It's no good. Very bad.
Yeah. But it's a really effective scene.
Yep.
Especially, like, now considering, like, that just exists as like a cultural thing, and it's existed as like comedy for so long. Like it's weird to me that the big takeaway from this movie for the culture is like dueling banjos and hillbillies looking stupid,
to the point where when I had a conversation with us at work, somebody told me that all they knew about this movie was that scene and dueling banjos, and did not know that those things did not happen at the same time. Because that's to the point to which, so like it's the only thing anybody knows about it. Like they assumed that dueling banjos plays during that scene.
And so like in the culture at large, dueling banjos means shit-kicking dumbass hillbillies.
Right.
That's what the signifier. And as does just squeal like a pig.
Right.
Which is really weird. It's like the entire culture at large is these people in this movie who are not good, who are quite rude to these people just living their lives.
That's true.
And yeah, and also I think it's just because it's it's a rape. It's uncomfortable. People want to make jokes about it.
Yeah, and I do think that it's because it's a man.
Yeah.
So
because a man is like, well, I don't want to think about this.
Yeah, right, exactly.
I don't want to think this could happen to me.
Yep.
This must be a completely ridiculous thing that must be made fun of.
Yep.
And it's unfortunate.
Yeah.
So I think this movie, it doesn't exactly get like a bad rap. Like, I don't think anybody thinks, like, I don't know if you haven't seen it. Well, actually, no, you hadn't seen it and you were like, I don't want to watch this. This is going to be garbage.
Well, I don't think I mean, yeah, maybe I did think it was going to be garbage, yeah. And it's not garbage, but I certainly, even without that, I certainly didn't think that it was an experience that I would get anything out of.
Yeah.
You know, and then it just seemed like, I feel this way about movies in general.
That they're not an experience, it's not something an experience would get much out of.
I just mean, like, whenever people talk
movies
about...
are fine.
Movies are fine. Whenever people talk about, you know, film nerds talk about, like, really difficult movies to watch, and they're like, oh, but it's so good, the filmmaking and stuff like that, and I'm like, do you think I'm going to be thinking about the filmmaking if I watch, like, Irreversible?
Well, that's not...
You know?
I mean, I don't know. I've never seen Irreversible. I don't really want to either.
Right. But that's what I mean. It's like people... I don't know, because I feel like there's an attitude where people are like, oh, you know, it's fine. You just have to... You're thinking about this too emotionally. You have to divorce yourself from the content to a certain extent to appreciate the filmmaking. And I'm like...
That's stupid.
I agree.
Like, okay, so I am, to a certain extent, always conscious of the filmmaking because that's just... It's what I'm interested in. It's,
right.
You know, I wanted to make movies since I was like, I don't know, like 2. And so this is just a thing that I've always been noticing my entire life, and I can't turn it off. And, you know, especially since I've learned more about making movies and made them myself. So I can never turn that off. But, like, the reason to watch movies like this is for the emotional experience.
Right.
Okay, and we're back. I have no idea what we were talking about like 15 minutes ago.
Yeah, we got really distracted as soon as the pouring rain
started. It just started raining really hard, and it seemed like that would be bad for audio, and also I was sweating like a pig. I shouldn't say that now. Now I'm thinking about that again. Well, we were talking about that scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I thought about, and I was reading the trivia a little bit while we were waiting. Not about that, but it mentions how there's nobody credited with a score for this movie. Yeah,
well, really all the music is, there's dueling banjos, and then there's a few minutes of, like, a slightly different arrangement of that.
Yeah.
And that's it. There's no other music in the movie.
Yeah, which is wild, actually.
Yeah.
And I think that's like pretty effective, even though I didn't notice it at the time.
Yeah, well, it's not something that you should notice.
Yeah, but like, because if you were out in nature, there wouldn't be music.
I mean, yeah. And in most,
you know what I meant.
In most movies,
there's music playing and such. I know,
yeah.
but you know what I mean, though. Like the quiet of just being out in the woods or whatever would be, I don't know, whatever.
It does almost put you more with the characters in a way. I think it might have just been I've heard John Boorman kept talking about how they had just no money at all to make this movie, and I think he originally was going to have like a score, and it cost him, he had to cut like $75,000 out of the budget or something like that.
Okay.
This was made for nothing.
Yeah. I think that there's weird atonal music that plays during the cliff thing. I think that's part of what makes it so weird.
Maybe.
In my memory, there is.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't remember. There's not a lot of music in this movie.
No,
either way.
In general. I think that another thing that people might not know, because, you know, like I said, everybody just knows, dueling banjos from this. Yeah. It's like, that part of the movie is, like, kind of nice. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, it's, even though they're being dicks to these people from the town, you know, it's just like, Drew and this kid just wind up just playing music together and having a good time, and the guy at the gas station starts dancing, and it's a hell of a thing, but
which apparently that guy just started dancing,
which it's great.
Yep.
And yeah, but it seems like just right, and it's right at the beginning of the movie, and it seems for a minute like it's like, oh, we can all get along if we don't treat each other like garbage, and
and then the answer is no.
No, we can't. No. But yeah, but I just think that it's the opposite of the rest of the movie.
It is, yeah. It's very, and it's a weird way to start a movie with just like 4 minutes of banjo music.
Yeah.
Like, this is fun.
Yeah. And then it's like, don't worry, this is the only fun you're gonna have for the next
pretty much
2 hours.
Oh, I remember what we were talking about when it got real rainy, which is that people telling you not to get like emotional about movies. And I'm always aware of how movies are made all the time, but like I never put a movie on because I'm like, I really want to see how this guy uses the camera, and like that's I mean, well, I probably watched a few movies.
I was about to say you definitely have,
but like that's not a great reason to watch these movies, especially like I mean, in this movie, it's not like John Boorman is doing some really interesting things. He's made a very good movie, but he's it's shot like a movie.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And get emotionally affected by movies. That's why else would you watch movies? It seems silly to watch them otherwise.
Yep.
People who watch movies to seriously analyze them for their flaws and things like that.
Ugh. Like, how about live your life? How about have fun?
I'm gonna make a tick on this sheet of paper every time I notice a flaw in this movie, and then we'll see how many add up, and then see what this gets out of 100.
Right. The score of this movie is like please go do something. Just leave your house.
Yep.
Like
solve a math theorem or something. Yeah.
Like
create an algorithm, do something with
like go sit under a tree, for a couple of minutes, speak to a person you think is cute, like
actually I don't know, I don't think they're ready for that.
Well, I just want to give them soft, gentle encouragement into the world. I don't want to be like, no, you're terrible and I'm judging you. I'm like, no, just go experience some other things for a little while. Take a break. Anyway, but speaking of fun, it was a thing that struck me during this movie is, when they start near the beginning of their canoe trip, everything's flat, everything's nice, and they go through their first rapids. Yeah. And it looks like fun. They have a good time, and it's like an amusement park ride, and everybody's enjoying themselves. And then it's like they're as the movie goes on, every time there are more rapids, it's just more and more tense.
Yeah,
it's like because the second time is when they break the canoe and Drew falls out of the boat and all that happens. That's terrible. And then they have to go through even more rapids at the end with Lewis and his leg broken at the bottom of the boat. Yep. And everybody just looks just really tense and really drawn. And I was like, why did they think this trip was going to be fun? What did they think? Even barring if nothing else bad had happened, what was going to be enjoyable? Did they not scout this river in some way? I don't know.
They did not.
They did not. They clearly did not. No. Yeah.
And all of the locals are gonna raft. You're gonna canoe down that river?
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Yep. And
why?
Yeah. They're all. Yeah. Exactly. They're like, why? And he says because it's there. Mm-hmm. And the townspeople are just like, these men are dumb. Yeah. Why are they dumb? And the main characters are just like, these people, they don't know anything, whatever.
Yeah.
So the moral is listen to the locals, I guess.
Sure.
They know more about the area than
The
you.
moral is never try.
The moral is never try.
Yeah. This is a pretty short movie.
Okay.
It's like an hour and 41 minutes or something like that. It's very nice change of pace for Best Picture nominee.
Right.
Everything we watch is like at least 2.5 hours.
True.
We've got 2 3-hour movies to watch coming up soon.
Yep. Great.
Yep.
Thrilled. And one of them, even though we don't have to watch it, is 2 parts, and they're both 3 hours long.
Yep.
So, actually, that applies to both of them.
That's true, although we're not going to watch The Godfather Part 2 for this thing, because we'll have to watch it another year.
Exactly.
So this movie was nominated for 3 Academy Awards.
Okay.
That's it. Best Film Editing, Best Director, John Boorman, and Best Picture.
Okay.
Did not win anything.
I saw in the trivia that Burt Reynolds said that he thought it didn't win Best Picture because he posed nude.
Burt Reynolds only ever thinks about himself.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Like, hey, Burt Reynolds, did you think maybe it didn't win Best Picture because it was competing with The Godfather? A superior film?
No, never occurred to him.
Yeah.
It never occurred to him. It's like, those guys in The Godfather, they didn't have to throw themselves down a river.
I'm sure it didn't occur to him because I'm sure he, like, turned down The Godfather or something. I'm sure he was considered for The Godfather.
Well, I don't know. Cause
or maybe he was considered and they turned him down.
Okay.
I don't know.
Because I was going to say, because he hadn't made movies before then, so I'm sure that...
Well, he'd been in some movies, but yeah, he was mostly a TV guy.
Right. I'm sure that he wasn't on the radar necessarily for The Godfather.
But, like, we'll get to this in the Godfather episode, but, like, they were looking at everybody in Hollywood. Okay. And when, like, Coppola was like, hey, I want to cast, like, these very Italian and Jewish-looking people, and the studio was like, what about Robert Redford? as a man named Corleone.
Yeah.
So I'm sure Burt Reynolds was in the mix there at some point.
Right. They were like, he has dark features.
Yep.
I do think it's a little bit interesting that none of the actors are nominated, but it's also,
I think it flew under the radar a little bit. But I also do I also do think The Godfather was this year, which had like as many big performances by men,
and then they nominated them all for supporting actor.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I feel like a lot of it, like maybe Ned Beatty would have gotten supporting if he wasn't up against Al Pacino for some reason.
Joel Grey.
Yep.
the other end of the who's the 5th person?
Eddie Albert in The Heartbreak Kid.
Okay. Which I know is a movie you like a lot.
Yeah, and he's very good. He's like the dad of the woman of Sybil Shepherd in the movie, and I feel like that was a guy. Like that's one of those awards where he's like an actor. He's been around for decades and always been good and got the Best Supporting Actor. He just finished up his run on Green Acres when he got this Best Supporting Actor nomination.
That's kind of funny.
Yep. But yeah, a lot of these people are very good. Ned Beatty, in particular, they're all pretty good. This is definitely the best role Burt Reynolds had.
That's true.
For like the next decade.
Yeah.
At least.
I do think that nobody except for Jon Voight is really doing that like heavy lifting acting in this movie. Though.
Yeah.
That capital A acting, all my feelings on my face kind of acting. Mm-hmm. But they're all very good.
Yeah. I think that like Burt Reynolds' role plays to like his strengths really well, like in the same way that like Smokey and the Bandit does, but like it's a good part,
right? Yeah, it's like
he gets
this guy is so charismatic, and you don't trust him.
Exactly.
Yep. Yeah.
And he's got his guns out the entire movie.
Yep. Yeah. Just
Best supporting actor goes to Burt Reynolds' arms.
Yep. It's true. It's really rocking that vest.
Yep.
It looks like a wetsuit.
It's like rubber. It's a rubber vest. It's very strange.
Weird.
Yeah. Ronnie Cox, he would be
he does he acts pretty hard.
He's good, but he
they all do.
Yeah,
I don't know.
He kept acting throughout the 70s and 80s, but like he didn't really come back strong again until like the late 80s, when for some reason he was just like the face of corporate evil in all those Paul Verhoeven movies. He's the bad guy in RoboCop and Total Recall. I
mean, that's good to know because I genuinely don't know who he is.
Yeah. Those are the only two other things I know him for.
Okay.
He apparently also has a quite popular side gig as just like a touring like folk and country musician.
Okay. I guess I don't have anything else to say about that.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess
we can talk about the name.
The name
Deliverance.
Ronnie Cox?
The name Deliverance.
The name Deliverance, yeah. It's apparently explained in the novel.
Okay.
But it's sort of like representing like a deliverance from like city life. Like that's what they're expecting. They're just like they're expecting salvation from like the hectic lives that they lead.
The rat race.
Yeah. And it's very much not that.
Yeah. Because I thought about it while we were watching the movie because I didn't know that. And it seems that way when they finally get to the end of the river.
Mm-hmm. It's a very different sort of salvation. It's,
right.
They can't wait to get back to their shitty lives.
Yes, exactly. But they do. They finally get to the end of the river, and there's literally a church there. Mm-hmm. Which turns out is on wheels. It turns out that church is on wheels.
Yeah, it was there.
They put it on wheels because they have to move the whole town.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because it's going to be a lake soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We didn't talk at all about like the ending of the movie or like the last like 15 minutes of the movie or so.
Yeah.
They've gotten out of the river safe, and then they're just sort of like it's just John Voight and Ned Beatty like recovering and hoping nobody finds out that they murdered two people.
Yes, exactly.
And it's interesting. I feel like, some version of this movie, like the more maybe exploitation-minded version of this movie, would have just ended with them getting off out of the river.
I guess that's true.
In some way. But I feel like you need the aftermath of it to like see what this has done to these people.
Yeah, there's the one part that's really good because, John Voight has to go to the hospital, but he doesn't have to stay long. Like, Burt Reynolds is stuck in the hospital because he has to have surgery on the fact of his mutilated leg, basically. But when John Voight gets out of the hospital and he goes to the place where they're staying, and
he goes to they're put up at this like little hotel, and there's like a dinner for like all of the residents of this hotel, but it's like a big like family dinner. And Ned Beatty's already sitting there eating because he's doing all right, and he just walks in late, and he basically just can't handle it.
Yeah, everybody's like real nice to him, and he sits down and like just immediately starts crying.
Yeah. And then there's like a minute, and then Ned Beatty's like, this corn is something special.
Yeah, right, exactly. Like, they give him a second, and then they're like, okay, like, he'll be okay, let's keep talking. Yeah. He'll get used to it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a nice moment.
Yeah. But yeah, and then there's the sheriff, or not even the sheriff, but like the deputy doesn't, he knows they did some shit.
Yeah.
But nobody can prove anything, and then it's all gonna be a lake.
Yeah. So like, yeah. And then at the very end of the movie, before they're gonna leave this town forever, like the sheriff like just walks up to John Voight in his car and it says, "Don't ever come back to this town again."
Yep. And he's like, we won't.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, right. And there's the whole motif after that about like he has a nightmare about basically about the body coming back and stuff.
Yeah, this is interesting. It's like at one point he has a dream. Well, you don't even know it's a dream at first. You just see like this body of water and like a bloated hand just like floats out of it, and then John Voight wakes up in a cold sweat.
Yep.
And then the movie just ends like on that same shot, but before the hand comes
but without
up,
the hand in
and
it.
It's very ominous and creepy. And apparently, Brian De Palma specifically paid homage to that with the end of Carrie,
okay,
which I haven't seen, but spoiler alert. there's a dream sequence involving Carrie's hand, like, or is it Carrie? Or whoever's hand coming out of a grave.
Okay.
And then, like, from there, that just became a horror movie thing.
A trope,
like, then, like, Friday the 13th does it, and then it's in everything. And I think it's very interesting how it started here in this, like, not really horror movie. I feel like this is almost like a horror movie by proxy. Like it's close enough to a horror movie.
Yeah, it's true.
And it's like in the exact same genre, which like 20 years later would become a horror movie.
Yeah, you know? they would make this movie except have it less about them surviving the river and more about actual being stalked by hillbillies.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure I've seen that exact movie at least like 3 times.
Right.
And so that's pretty interesting.
Yeah. But yeah. But I like, though, that it cuts back, like, and the credits are just over the lake without the hand, because that just gets across that that this is a thing that he's going to be worried about for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, well, we got away with this murder, but I'm always going to know that somebody could just find this body.
Yeah. It's that, and also I think it's a real interesting juxtaposition, like it's showing this as a lake and the water is just so still and calm.
Yeah, compared to
what it used to be.
It's nightmare of a river.
Yeah, but it's like now the exact opposite of his mental state. Like, but at both points in the movie, the water is like the exact opposite of like going into the movies.
Right. That's true. That's fair.
I don't know.
Good job.
Yeah, I tried to figure it out. I'm always trying to get to like metaphor and stuff and theme.
Sometimes it's better than, but that's the thing with metaphor. You can just make it up.
Yeah,
nobody can say, well, that's incorrect.
Yeah, I like movies that I think my favorite movies or stories in general are ones where you can like almost articulate like 5 different themes that pop up in the movie rather than clearly state one.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, like whenever somebody is like, "Oh yeah, I made this deliberately as a Vietnam War allegory," that movie is usually less interesting as a narrative.
Right.
Whereas this one has a lot of stuff you can sort of pull through, even though I can't clearly state any of the themes because I'm not very smart. It feels like there's a lot of stuff there.
Okay.
It's a rich viewing experience, I think.
Yeah, I think that's true. I agree with that.
Yeah. I think eventually we came around to say things about this movie. For a while, for like the first hour we were recording, I was like, is this episode only going to be like 20 minutes long?
Yeah, well.
I think we're doing okay now. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Please rate us on iTunes. I'm begging you at this point. I'll buy you a cheesesteak if you rate us on iTunes.
Please don't stick to that.
No.
I don't want to buy people cheesesteaks.
It would be a very hard thing to like ship.
Yeah, that's true.
Hopefully we don't know all these people in person, but maybe we do. Rate us on iTunes, leave us a review. You can follow us on Twitter at NominEsPod. The Twitter account will soon be reactive, probably, hopefully.
I have almost posted the schedule 3 times, and it's like good that I didn't, because we've blown past every date that I've tried to put on the schedule.
Yeah, look, we're figuring this out.
Okay.
This is for the first year of podcasts. It could be a little bumpy, you know.
That's true.
Nobody comes right out the gate and is just like, you know, sticking to everything right away. Unless they're like on a podcast network and are getting paid to do this or something.
Not even that. I was going to say unless they've been making podcasts for, 5 years or whatever, and they know what they're doing. Yeah. They know how to schedule their time effectively.
Yeah. This podcast is made entirely by us, and we have other things to do. Well, you have other things to do. I don't know. This is the only thing I have to do, but it's still hard. And follow us on Twitter, on Instagram, at NominEsPod. Send us an email at nominespod@gmail.com. If we get a letter, we'll read it on the air, unless it's like, fuck you.
Yeah. I don't think I have anything to add to that.
Yeah. Don't subscribe on Patreon yet. We haven't done anything.
No. But you
I also have to edit all those episodes too. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I got nothing. Thank you for listening.
Yeah. Stay tuned in 2 weeks for The Emigrants.
Yeah. I don't know what to expect from that one. I
Yeah.
know it's Swedish.
Yeah. 3-hour Swedish epic about Swedish people coming to America in the 1800s.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure, so it's 2 movies. There's The Immigrants and The New Land, and I'm pretty sure they don't even get to America until The New Land.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, okay.
Maybe they do. I don't know. But I'm positive like a full hour of this movie is just inside a boat. I have no idea. We'll find out. Maybe it's great. Who knows? Stay tuned for that. But that's it from us.
Later.
Later.